The chosen one. You are their first focus. Do you know why they are agitated? Why? There are those who do not comprehend you, who talks behind your back, who underestimates you. Because you are not the average individual. Your light is very bright. Your spirit is too powerful. Your enthusiasm is very astounding. The true fear of those who attempt to stop you is that they will discover who you really are. They understand that once you wake up and recognize your power, nothing will be the same. You are not a random visitor in this planet. You are the chosen one. Their underlying concern is that you will no longer be susceptible to manipulation, that you will transcend your restrictions and achieve your heavenly destiny. In this video, we'll discuss why they're so anxious about you, why they are attempting to keep you back, and how you might emerge from this circumstance stronger. Are you ready? Right. In the comments. Now that your ascent has started, the world surrounds them with limitless possibilities, faces eager to be recognized, and voices vying for their attention. But none of it moves them. Compliments, planned chats with no content, and gestures designed to impress rarely register. And then there's you, unassuming and aloof, but at the core of their thoughts. This is neither a passing fancy or a choice based on convenience. It's something deeper, something that challenges what they thought they knew about connection. It's a subtle draw, an unconscious knowledge that pushes all other options to the background, leaving just the confidence that no one else can compare. They have more options than they could possibly need, but none of them feel authentic. They go through the motions, answering when necessary, nodding at appropriate moments, and even engaging in flirting out of habit. However, every conversation with someone else seems planned. A scene they've acted out too many times. And then, unexpectedly, you emerge. You do not battle for their attention, do not participate in the games that they have learned to anticipate. And yet, they keep coming back to you, pulled in ways they can't understand. The energy they used to distribute so effortlessly now lingers elsewhere, circulating around the notion of you like an unbreakable orbit. They do not comprehend why you are different. Why do you stand out like no one else? They persuade themselves it's a coincidence, a fleeting fancy. Something in their psyche will ultimately shake. But the emotion persists. They should be basking in the affection of those willing to offer them anything. Instead, everything seems empty, like echoes in a hollow chamber, while others compete for their attention. They come to you, looking for something unsaid, something they don't yet have words for. It does not go unnoticed. Friends chuckle and point out their abrupt lack of interest in others. They used to entertain without thinking twice. Someone perfect stands in front of them. Someone who ticks all the logical boxes. Yet there is no flame, no depth. They follow the instructions and engage as intended, but their minds are elsewhere. A voice in the back of their heads informs them that this isn't the one since they've already met the person they're supposed to meet. You felt it too. That unexplainable moment when someone stares at you not just with their eyes, but with something deeper, unaffected by time or situation. It wasn't planned or sought for, but something inside them shifted a memory they couldn't place. A understanding beyond words. It wasn't the same chemistry they'd known previously. Not a leisurely evolution or a deliberate decision. It was realization, a fact that had been hidden for generations but was now evident. If you are experiencing an excess of divine love in your heart, now is the moment to share it. You may help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and donating $100 or more. This wonderful gift will affect not just your life, but the souls of countless others via this platform. Each of you has a special role in God's big plan, and your giving will be the result of our prayers. Act now. Share your benefits to honor His kingdom. You were meant to do much bigger things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. It's like going through a dry region, longing for something you can't identify, only to discover a well that was always there for you. They were not looking for this. They weren't prepared for it. But here, it is clear, inevitable, and draws them in. Like gravity, they attempt to explain it away, to reduce it to something reasonable, something controllable. Perhaps it's the way you walk, the way you hold yourself with a confidence that doesn't ask for attention but demands it nevertheless. Perhaps it's the way you talk, how your words appear to fall just where they're meant to. like scripture making its way into a believer's heart at precisely the proper time. But none of this is it. This is something deeper, something that talks to the invisible, bypassing their brains and directly to their spirit. They've met hundreds and strolled through halls crowded with voices clamoring for attention. We shared places with individuals who should have sparked something in them. However, nothing has come close to this. They convinced themselves it's only a fleeting idea, a moment of curiosity that will vanish like all the ones before it. However, there is no expiry date for recognition. There is no explanation that can take away the sensation of encountering something, someone who was never supposed to be neglected. And this was never intended to be unnoticed. The indications start modest and gradually become difficult to ignore. When they remember you, they send you a message. A sentence they were going to say comes out of your mouth instead, and a location they previously visited has a link to your history. Separated by time, but curiously linked. The cosmos is constantly aligning, bending reality in ways that defy understanding, leading them to what they've been avoiding. They disregard it at first, call it a coincidence, a mental trick, but it continues occurring until resisting it becomes more unnatural than embracing it. The world is not whispering, it is roaring. And no matter how hard they try, the reality remains clear. Some relationships are just too exact and well-planned to be random. And the more they reject it, the more obvious the indicators become, ensuring that regardless matter which route they choose, every route leads back to you. The presence may be gone, yet the energy remains. A name floats through the mind, unbidden, making its way into idle ideas that emerge in times of calm. They persuade themselves it is nothing. However, the feeling lingers, a low hum just under consciousness. The day progresses, full with discussions, duties, and passing diversions. However, a hint of something familiar persists, prompting the one to check for a message. The sudden restlessness, the unexplainable confidence that you are thinking about them at that very time, leads to a connection that is not dependent on proximity. A pull that exists beyond sight and sound. Their gaze shifts without purpose, scanning faces moving amid a sea of people, constantly looking but not understanding why. It's not about seeking for somebody in particular. However, the absence is clear. There is an empty void, an unmet expectation. It's a bizarre link. A presence was sensed even amid the quiet. Distance has no influence on anything like this. The thread connecting two souls stays tight, uniting them in ways neither can really comprehend. A feeling as genuine as breathing in their lungs. An invisible thread looped around them, tugging, reminding them that they had never expected to lose control of something so ephemeral. It unsettles them that you exist outside their grasp while remaining inescapable. You don't pursue. You don't demand their attention. And yet, it is yours without effort. They had links that made sense. Love, that was reasonable. Partnerships based on shared basis. Everything prior was structured, methodical, and predictable, which provided security. But this is different. This is a force that doesn't seek permission. A presence that is not limited by reason. Nothing else compares. You didn't fit in their world. You untangled it. They attempted to frame it in a logical manner by comparing it to previous events. However, there is no precedence. The familiarity is disconcerting. A sense of recollection rather than novelty. It was never about calculating the pros and disadvantages or choosing if you were the best option. There was no option except to know for certain. So absolute. It makes all that came before it irrelevant. Love has always been a compromise, a balancing of aspirations and realities. It had been something to negotiate and shape into something manageable. But this defies logic. There is no persuading, adapting, or rationalizing. It just exists. Unshakable, undeniable. The heart races without permission. Before love, the mind drifted without warning in search of anything that made sense. They now recognize that it was never intended to be about rationality. It was about inevitability, not about settling, but about discovering something so profoundly genuine. It becomes difficult to ignore. They suffocate as a result of the loudness around them. The universe vibrates with hollow sounds. Admiration, that means nothing. conversations that occupy space but never get to the heart of who they are. They've lived in a society where attention was plentiful, where eyes followed them, where others competed for their attention. But all of it, every lingering gaze and muttered remark fades into the background because you remain unconcerned, uninterested, and unaffected by the games they previously mastered. You do not want their approval. Do not try to retain their attention. And yet, you have it all. That is what disturbs them the most. They are used to being sought and chased. People attempt, impress, and push ahead in the hopes of being noticed. But you are unshaken and unaffected by their weight, moving at your own pace. That is why you stand out. You are not a part of the constant clamor. You are the silence, the stillness. They were never aware they were absent. They attempt to disregard it and make sense of it. But the reality is unavoidable. When they are surrounded with adulation, their minds go away. When others talk, people desire to hear your words. When the world revolves around them, it's you they look for, and below it all. The dread is not of losing control or becoming weak, but of slipping beyond their grasp. Because, above all, it is something they are not ready to confront. They refuse to accept it, yet it is evident in the way their stare lingers. Just a second too long in the imperceptible pause that undermines their carefully kept poise. It is not avoidance. It is constraint. For so long, they have been in charge. The one who set the speed and distance. Who refused to allow anybody get too near unless it was on their terms. They saw love as predictable, something they could manage without losing themselves. But suddenly something is changing. Something they can't define. The rules they used to follow have failed them. Every defense they constructed suddenly falls with astonishing ease. Where they formerly felt anchored, they now feel weightless and drawn to something. They convince themselves it is nothing and that they can move on. But the emotion remains unwavering. A force beyond sense continues driving them towards you. A powerful pull that feels as if gravity has altered. They've always been consistent, measured, and calm. But you can unravel them without even trying. Surrender has never come easy. To let go is to be vulnerable. To lay their reliance in something they cannot control. It's risky. Uncertainty. The potential of loss. Despite all of the reasons people give themselves to break away, there is something deeper, something louder, calling them back. Their intellect struggles with dread, but their soul speaks the truth. This is not typical. This cannot be explained away. This is genuine. Doubt says, what if this is too much? But something deeper, unshakable, replies, what if this is everything? You did not just enter their world. You flipped it inside out. Since meeting you, they've started to look beyond the distractions. Question the behaviors that formerly provided them with comfort. Recognize the emptiness in the things they used to seek as they passed through. Life now seems unfamiliar, as if they've outgrown a version of themselves they weren't even aware they were holding on to. What previously seemed rewarding now seems empty. Conversations they used to love, company they formerly kept, all lack the depth they now want. They can now see through all of the surface-level relationships and pointless conversations. They used to be so free and indiscriminate with their energy. But now, they are hesitant. They are now guarding their space. Not because you have asked them to change. Not because you demanded anything. But because knowing you has altered their expectations of the world. Something inside them is awakening. A need for something deeper. Something genuine. Something beyond the cacophony in which they formerly lost themselves. They are attracted to introspection, insight, and learning who they actually are. For the first time, they are asking relevant questions. What do I really want? Where am I going? What is this emotion that refuses to let me go? You didn't just arouse their feelings. You heightened their consciousness. And this cannot be undone. It's not simply about attractiveness. It is more than simply fascination. It's a change. Significant, obvious change. They're not sure when it started, but they can feel it flowing through their whole body. Their previous lifestyle no longer suits them. The discussions they previously had seem hollow. The attention they formerly desired seems irrelevant. They are not avoiding people. They are traveling towards something bigger, like a river that has changed course to pursue a higher calling. Your life has started to flow in a path far beyond the shallow streams of meaningless praise and fleeting approval. The acceptance you formerly sought from others no longer fills a deep hole in your spirit. The individuals who formerly played an important part in your life now seem like distant landmarks, familiar but no longer directing your route. This is neither an angry choice or a spontaneous revolt. It's a slow, unavoidable unraveling of the past. The world you formerly knew, with its familiar routines and predictable connections, no longer provides the protection your soul needs. Instead, you find yourself pulled to a much bigger and more fundamental promise, a calling that unerringly returns to the source of genuine value in the past. You sought affirmation in the acceptance of others, hoping that their acknowledgement would fill the vacuum within. However, the pleasure of affirmation has faded with time. What once gave you a feeling of belonging now seems like a distant recollection, a remembrance of a chapter that has long passed. You're not breaking up because you're angry or dissatisfied. It is merely the natural process of losing what no longer serves you, similar to how an old sweater loses its warmth. The familiar has become too thin to protect you from life's unavoidable changes. There is a subtle revolution happening inside you, a metamorphosis that is both gradual and deep. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace come upon you today. I'm here to remind you of a fundamental fact. Our existence is based on God's divine purpose and is unaffected by worldly worries. According to the Bible, everything is done with faith will be returned to God with great blessing. Look, like the enormous oak tree, our roots are profoundly embedded in God's global truth. His power secures every stride and every stance we take. And now you have the chance to be a part of that gift. When you utilize the super thank you button and give money, this movement will return to you many times over. You've realized that your previous existence no longer seems like home. The sounds and people that once filled your days have faded into the background, their impact diminishing with each new daybreak. You feel the stirrings of something much more significant, a heavenly summons to embark on a destiny that has always been engraved in the stars. This is not a loud or rude cry. It does not demand your instant attention by dazzling gestures or hollow promises. Instead, it speaks to you on a regular basis, telling you that genuine satisfaction lies not in the superficial acclaim of the crowd, but in the calm conviction of a greater purpose. As you stand at this crossroads, you realize that the affirmation you formerly sought is no longer essential. The acceptance of others, once a beacon in your life, has faded in contrast to the inner light that leads you. Every contact that previously appeared critical now looks to be only a stepping stone on the way to a more prosperous, plentiful future. The connections that used to define you have progressively relaxed their grasp, allowing for a revelation. True value comes from inside. From a holy spark, no worldly praise can ever compare. There is an evident change happening in your heart, a shift from the superficial to the timeless. You now realize that the people and places that formerly occupied your life were only preludes to the amazing tale that is unfolding with each moment of affirmation you once sought. Now it serves as a lesson, a reminder that the only genuine measure of success is the realization of one's own divine purpose. The familiar has lost its grip, not via painful rejection, but through a natural sacred realignment. An age-old promise has aroused your heart, one that convinces you that every step, every hardship, and every momentary moment of praise was preparing you for something far bigger. During this spiritual journey, you no longer allow others' views to determine your self-worth. Instead, you are certain that your worth stems from a greater source, a force that goes beyond human confirmation and touches the very core of who you are. The faraway characters from your past, people who previously seemed important, now serve as gentle reminders of a period when you were still learning to see the divine potential inside them. Their existence in your memories is not a cause of sorrow, but rather a monument to the lessons learned and the progress attained. As you begin this new chapter, you sense a stirring inside that is both invigorating and soothing. There is a great feeling of release in knowing that you are no longer bound by the transient plaudits of others. Instead, you are being called to a destiny that provides both worldly wealth and spiritual satisfaction. a destiny in which your heart sings in tune with the cosmos. The old validations have lost their luster, and in their stead, you've discovered a richness of purpose that fills every area of your existence with brightness, hope, and a fresh feeling of self. In the end, the path you're on is about accepting a divinely arranged future rather than discarding the past with resentment. A future in which the actual value of your life is determined by the power of your spirit, the clarity of your vision, and the unyielding certainty that you are meant for something extraordinary. The metamorphosis you are going through is a subtle but strong reminder that the only validation you really need is the affirmation of your own soul, led by a divine promise that will take you ever closer to the rich life you were always destined to enjoy. They haven't really grasped the gravity of the situation, but something inside them has moved. There is no going back. There will be no retreating into the security of their former selves. You did not demand change. I didn't beg for attention. I didn't wait in the shadows, hoping they'd eventually turn your way. That's what bothers them the most. You are unaffected by their reluctance or indecision. You go ahead, unrestricted, into the totality of who you are. They can sense it. Your presence is a force that cannot be ignored, and it confuses them. You're not reaching for them. Nevertheless, they feel the draw. You aren't trying to captivate them, but their thoughts keep coming back to you. Unlike others who crave their approval, you do not cower in their company. You stand steadfast, rooted on your own path. They are not tied to their judgments, and it is what makes them uneasy. They are used to being the axis around which others revolve, being sought, and having control over how near someone comes. But you are beyond their reach. Not because they can't find you, but because you're not waiting to be caught. They never intended to determine your path. You grow, you develop, you progress towards something bigger. It has nothing to do with them. Nonetheless, the knowledge rattles them. They are attracted to you in ways they cannot describe. And that scares them because you don't need them to feel complete. That's the difference. The shift, the reason they can't look away. Love for them has always been about control. They know where they stand and wield the reins. But you have no control, only the hard fact that they must repeatedly pick. Now, before you leave their grasp, this was never about requiring someone to finish things. It was all about inspiration, about awakening. And you, without any effort or desire, have been the trigger for something they were unprepared for. They attempted to justify it, reduce it to something transitory, something that might pass like any other connection before. However, you are more than simply another moment, name, or face forgotten in time. You are the gap between their thoughts, the presence they sense, even when you are not around. It's time to spread God's blessings by pressing the super thank you button on YouTube. You may contribute to His plan and become a part of this holy mission. Make a contribution of $100 or more. Every contribution symbolizes God's generosity, and I think it will return to you enormously, far above your expectations. Remember that His protection and blessing are with you at all times, including your donations. You become a part of His divine plan. You are a powerful, dazzling entity, as steadfast as His huge rock. Witness God's marvels. Feel the rewards of your kindness in your spirit, and light up the world with confidence and bravery. Be blessed, and let the light of the Lord lead you. They resisted. They attempted to destroy it piece by piece, telling themselves it was nothing more than a fleeting notion, an insignificant emotion. They remind themselves of the reasoning they have always relied on. They have depended on neatly crafted barriers for so long. They lose themselves in diversions, plans, and habits. But no matter how hard they flee or how far they attempt to push this away, your presence remains a gentle but unrelenting echo woven into their whole existence. Every excuse they've given themselves to ignore this crumbles beneath the weight of something irrefutable. Fear instructs them to stay far, to safeguard what they know, and to maintain the appearance of power. But underneath the anxiety, there is something more. A knowing, a whisper that never stops, calling them back, saying your name between breaths. They may persuade the world, and even themselves, that they are unaffected. However, the reality has already taken root. Some things are too real to deny. They assumed time was on their side. They felt they could deal with this when it was convenient and when they were ready, when they had everything figured out. But the truth is setting in. This is something they cannot put off, not something they can put on hold while life continues as it is. Because life as it was is no longer suitable. And the more they wait, the higher the danger that by the time they are ready, you will be out of reach.